Welcome to the show, folks. Another edition of PodCRASH. This week's crash, Hootenanny. What is Hootenanny? You know what? I'm going to leave it as a mystery. I'm not going to tell you what Hootenanny is. I mean, I guess you could read the description. You know, if you're listening to this podcast, you can probably read it. Don't even read it. Don't read it. You should be listening to this show. It doesn't matter what podcast I'm crashing. You should just hopefully enjoy the banter. And, you know, look, you know what? In fact, if I'm bad on the podcast, that's actually good because that makes it entertaining for you. Torturous for me. I have to apologize about my voice yet again. Every time I go to a convention or a film festival, I always get what I call this convention voice or festival voice. I guess it depends on which I go to, but it really is. I just talk too much. When I'm super excited about whatever it is, whether it's some film or just geeking out about something. So when I go to these things, I end up hanging with a group of like-minded people, and I lose my voice. Oh, maybe I'll sound a little better that way. Anyways, so I was at the Catalina Film Festival this weekend. It was amazing. I've talked to you about it. I got to thank Ziggy, Jennifer Chittister, Russ, one of the bigwigs there, for really taking care of me. They put me up. Had a great time. Got to interview Stan Lee in front of hundreds of people. There was a live stream to 40,000 people. I even recorded it. I'll be playing some clips on a future podcast that will be more appropriate. But yeah, it was just so great to hang out with Stan. And hang out with his sort of people. The people that surround him, they love him. And I have loved and admired this man forever. He actually signed a copy of a book. I worked on this show, believe it or not. I worked on Who Wants to Be a Superhero. That show was on Sci-Fi Channel. I was one of the 3 different groups of reality TV people trying to get this thing produced. And I worked on the show Bible and had... Because I knew comic books, so a buddy, Arthur Borman, brought me in. I worked on it, and I was in the room with Stan Lee in meetings. And the torturous part of it is, I brought in all these books, and I could never get him to sign them because it was just inappropriate. We're in a work situation. I'm going to ask Stan to sign my book. I finally got him to sign this copy of it's a paperback called The Origins of Marvel Comics, and it's something I've had since I was 9 years old. And it's this book. It's a collection of all the number ones of the Avengers. It's the Fantastic Four. It's sort of, they would do like the number one. Here's the origin story, and then here's like another sort of selected comic book in there. And that was the only way. When I was a kid buying comics, I would buy the comics, read them, but it was impossible to get. I wanted to get like the first 100 issues of Fantastic Four. I want to see them chronologically. I want to know how things happen, and the only way to do that was to actually buy all those old comics, which were expensive. You know, I blame Stan Lee for the reason that my comics are in such horrible condition because I'm a reader, not a collector. I like to read the stuff. So I bought this paperback, just fascinated me because it was these just brilliant, in terms of the color and whatnot, reprints on nice paper of all the early editions of some of my favorite comic book characters, you know, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, all that stuff. All in one. Well, actually 2 of them. There's Origins of Marvel Comics and Son of Origins. I had both of them. That thing I poured over and read hundreds of times, thousands of times when I was a kid. And it just used to just look at the Marvel. I would marvel at the artwork. And what's cool about it is the cover of it is I'll tweet a picture of this. The cover is Stan Lee's hands on a typewriter and all the Marvel characters are coming out of it. The first time I really sort of figured out like who Stan Lee was, because he wrote this forward in there and it was just exuding enthusiasm. I can't believe this guy has so much energy at his age. It's just amazing. And he's a blast to hang out with, I got to say. So that was an awesome festival. I got to get out to some more film festivals for sure. I have been missing out. They've gotten even more fun. Before I get on with some stuff, a couple plugs real quick. I'll be doing this improv show this Friday, May 11th, 11 p.m. It's called Glory Stories. Glory Stories at this Friday, May 11th. It's at the IO West Main Stage Theater, 6366 Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. Admission to Glory Stories is $5, 2 for 1 with, 2 for 1 with kinky costume. If you have a kinky costume, sexy costume, whatever, I guess it's 2 for 1. So you'll save yourself $5. And Glory Stories is it's like a sexy improv show. I have no idea how did I get dragged into this? I actually know exactly how I got dragged in. There's going to be drink specials and also gifts from the stock room. If you know what the stock room is, you're going to want to get some of those free gifts. That's Glory Stories this Friday, May 11th. Also, proud to announce our very first live PodCRASH taping. That's going to be, it's a live show, and I'm crashing a podcast called Defective Geeks, which is like a nerd girl show. I love the nerd girls. So there'll be some nerd girls there, and we're doing that. It's a little early to announce this, but you can put it on your calendar. It's a Saturday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. It's at the Comic Bug in Manhattan Beach, California. I'll give you more details on that later in terms of, admission and whatnot. But that's our first live PodCRASH taping. That should be a lot of fun. And then with the girls of Defective Geeks, which if you have not checked out that podcast, you should. You should definitely check it out. Now, I was on this show called Hootenanny. And let me tell you about the show. First of all, what is a hootenanny? When I think hootenanny, I think, oh, that's a party. So I wanted to confirm this, right? So before I started firing up the old microphone here to talk to you, looked it up. I just want to confirm hootenanny. Okay, yes, it's an Appalachian. It's an Appalachian term, believe it or not. Hootenanny. It's like a sort of a country term for partying, which is it's like okay, I knew that, and I'm looking on Wikipedia, and then I'm looking on Wikipedia, and I find myself, yes, I'm on Wikipedia. I have an entry on Wikipedia about me and realize there is first of all, I feel glad that college professors and high school teachers will not accept Wikipedia as a reliable source because my entry there is completely wrong. I've fought this battle before. I stopped trying to. This is like years ago. Someone had posted on this that I directed this movie that I didn't direct, and then I went back and forth just to try and just make it accurate. I don't care, but now this isn't just inaccurate. It's just throwing all this bizarre judgment, which annoys the crap out of me. If any of you out there contribute to Wikipedia, first of all, I think it's a brilliant concept for a project if there weren't so many jackholes screwing it up. I mean, there's either facts missing or weird. There's a thing here that goes on. It says, it talks about me and then gets down to and then it says, goes on. G4 then based a recurring gag in an August 2010 episode of Attack of the Show on the murder of Chris Gore, bringing up 3 potential murderers, each furthering the idea that his movies are horrible and that everyone wanted to kill him. Which is not what that was. That was a bit that was a parody of sort of season endings and just sort of cliches from TV. It was Jump the Shark Week on Attack of the Show, and it was sort of making light of like the Who Killed JR. It was Who Killed Chris Gore. And these girls killed me over, it was, obviously this was all staged. It was a sketch. I think I'm in like one part of it at the beginning when I get actually killed. And you can find this somewhere on the internet. But it was all made up. It was a scripted thing. It had nothing to do with the fact that my movies are horrible. I haven't even made enough movies to actually have that my movies are horrible. Movies meaning like, look, I made a couple short films that people know about, and I produced a feature, My Big Fat Independent Movie. But I haven't really made enough movies really we could go, that's horrible. Let me make a few more. Then you can say that they're horrible. But there's other stuff in this wiki thing, and that just really, I don't know, it just irks me. So for any of you that are avid Wikipedia users, be warned. I just noticed this like offhand, like, oh, that's inaccurate. Now it makes me question: is hootenanny really an Appalachian term? Is hootenanny really a party? I'm not sure, but let's get to it because there's so much to talk about. Let's get right into this week's crash. Hootenanny is this podcast put together by Scott Boxenbaum. He's the host. And Scott and I are like about the same age. We're both, kind of, we've been through sort of punk rock scene. We're both kind of same. We're into the same stuff. The minute I walked in his house, I knew like we should have been recording in the kitchen because we just instantly started talking about stuff because I was just looking at the movie posters he had and kind of the pop culture stuff. That's sort of a thing like, oh, cool. You've got that. You've got like the French Taxi Driver poster. That's pretty awesome. So Scott's podcast, Hootenanny, is all about music. And what he does is he brings comedians on his show, and comedians are interesting folks, and they'll bring a playlist of anywhere between 10 and 20 songs that you then listen to throughout the show, and then you talk about music and your love of music. First of all, who doesn't love music? I have music that I use for a lot of different situations. One of my favorites is the Trent Reznor Ghosts. If you have that, it's like a 4 CD set, and it's like, I don't know, what is it, like 40 50 songs, all instrumental, and I like to write to that kind of stuff. I like to find instrumental music. In fact, most of my collection, well, before I got rid of most of my CDs, the majority of CDs, 2 to 1, were movie soundtracks. I love movie soundtracks, collected them since I was a kid, in record form as the medium evolved into CDs. And now people don't even get CDs anymore. It's all download or the bootleg, which sucks, but that's the way it is. But anyways, because I missed that whole album thing. Oh, see, now I sound, but I also like box sets on CD. I recently got a Smashing Pumpkins box set that had see, I could be doing this. Where's Scott when I need him? The Smashing Pumpkins just came out with this box set. It's it's like demo tracks of some of their earlier work. Anyways, okay, back to Hootenanny. He brings on comedians and they bring a playlist. You play the songs and then he comments in between. So, I mean, we immediately launched in, and we could have gone like 2 hours. The worst thing is like he has to end the show at some point. It can't be over a certain amount. And I brought in one song that was like 16 minutes long. So it was really fun to get in there and just talk about my favorite music, what it meant to me, talk about like concerts and shows that I went to in Detroit. And Scott and I really got into it. This is one of my favorite podcast appearances. Also, the audio is really good. Scott actually, in fact, I have to credit Scott. The reason this show, I don't know if you're listening to my voice, if it sounds maybe a little sort of deeper. Sounds a little bit more. I don't know. It should sound a little bit better because he encouraged me. He said, it takes about 6 months to get good at doing this, and he just threw a couple of pieces of quick advice, helped me to make this show hopefully sound better to you. But let's get right into it. This and I'm going to be talking between, but briefly because I want to be able to play some of the music for you that we're talking about in the show. And this is one of my absolute favorite podcast appearances. Scott Boxenbaum, not just a fellow podcaster, a friend. He's also a comedian himself. And I'll talk more about him throughout the show. So this is Hootenanny. Let's party!
So you grew up in Detroit?
Yep, Detroit.
And what was I'm 45, you're 46, so essentially around the same age.
Yeah.
And what was growing up in Detroit in the early 80s like?
Well, it's a city just outside. It's like on the border of Detroit, Royal Oak, Michigan.
Sure.
Around 12 mile. And I don't know. Growing up in Detroit, I think it's good to have those Midwestern values, but after a while, a friend of mine put it best, like, aside from the racism, sexism, homophobia, and culturally ingrained low self-esteem, Detroit's a great place to grow up.
Oh, fantastic.
So
they love people that aspire to anything, I can tell.
Oh, no, exactly. So the whole thing is like to beat down. Like if you've got any idea, I mean, I feel like you should feel lucky growing up in California. No one looks at you crazy like I want to start a band or I want to direct movies or I want to write a book. But if you aspire to anything in Detroit, one example, in college I had a series of lame jobs. But one of them was I worked at a gas station in the midnight shift. It was like, you get there at like 9 p.m. and you leave at like, 6 a.m.
That's a very punk rock job, by the way.
Right. So I had that job.
Repo Man.
I got fired, only worked there a couple days. I got fired because I showed up with my books to study. I was going to study books for college boy.
What's your problem? You read? You reading?
Yeah, like, I guess he thought maybe I wouldn't be paying attention. It's like, look, you push a couple buttons, you take their money. The money goes in the safe in the cement floor. This is a pretty basic job. I can handle it.
So Detroit is basically Philadelphia, but not nice.
Yeah, exactly. It's Philadelphia it's Philly without the kindness.
Right. And if anybody's from Philadelphia, they will understand what I'm talking about.
But there's definitely like Philly. No, I get it. And
I love Philadelphia, by the way. No offense, Philadelphia fans. All right.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the same thing like Boston too. Like I have a buddy from Boston.
Love Boston.
Yeah, but there is definitely that sort of like, the bully mentality definitely thrives in these cities.
Well, it's all these cities. What you don't realize in the Northeast is they have their own sort of rednecky element because there are people that never leave their neighborhoods. I mean, if you go to Charlestown or South Boston, I mean, you'll meet people that are no better in some ways than people that are in the worst parts of Alabama.
Growing up in that area is actually, I think, a good thing from the standpoint of just made me want to leave. It sort of I built up enough, like, I'm getting out of here. So I left when I was like,
skin too.
Yeah. I mean, I left when I grew up like a nerdy, geeky kid. So I left when I was about 22 and moved to LA with my Film Threat magazine, which I was doing on the side.
Right.
And then I worked for Hustler magazine, actually, as a writer, writing humor and comedy for Hustler.
Well, it's weird. There were actually a lot of good writers that sort of started out working for Hustler and Penthouse, that just, and cartoonists too.
Well, yeah, a lot of those guys even wrote because they couldn't get published anywhere. So guys like Kurt Vonnegut and Harlan Ellison were getting published in what were the men's magazines in the 50s and 60s because there was no other outlet for their type of writing. So that's kind of cool. I feel like, my legacy is somehow connected to those great writers. So I think it's important, where you grew up with and sort of the era you grew up in really does inform the kind of music that you're into. I'm very open-minded when it comes to music. One thing we didn't talk about on the show was my love of movie soundtracks. That's a huge part of my life. It's something that when I write, I always listen to some sort of movie soundtrack, some instrumental, something symphonic, something by John Williams sometimes, or Jerry Goldsmith, or on and on. But really, here we're talking about pop culture and pop music and rock and punk and that kind of stuff. And to me, that was something that helped me survive. Look, I was definitely a geek growing up and definitely a misfit. In whatever group I was in, I was always something of a misfit. But music was just it was a way that I was able to cope, a way that I could oh God, I just want to get the music in my head and just sort of escape. Look, I don't need to sit here and pontificate to you about how important music is to our lives, but it definitely, where you grew up is a big part of it. Let's get back to it. And I'm going to be playing some of this music that later on in the show. All right, back to Hootenanny. Well, Gardasaur, what's so funny is I'm in the movie and I have one line. I'm unloading chickens in a truck, but Corman put my quote on the poster or something this ain't no walk in the park, some reference to Jurassic Park.
Yeah, we'll use it, kid.
Yeah, no. But what was great about Corman, because I interviewed him a couple times, is he amazing guy. I had him do a photo shoot for Film Threat in this interview I did, and I asked him if he would pose holding a penny. So he held a penny up to his eye. It was sort of this artful shot, but I just talked to him about being cheap, but he wears it like a badge of honor. I mean, and I saw that documentary about Corman recently where he says, great documentary, by the way, this Roger Corman documentary. He says that, a filmmaker that doesn't know how to use money is like an artist that doesn't know how to use paint. And it's really true. I mean, I've met so many types of filmmakers in my time, and it's not the ones that have the biggest budgets that are the most talented. It's the ones that figure out how I'm going to present this vision with the resources I currently have.
Yeah. And do you think that is going on now, or has that art been lost lately? Because there seems to be a lack of independent film at this point. It's just impossible. I'm sure the means of distribution are changing because of the internet. Right. Am I right? I mean, do you think
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, do you think you're just going to have feature films distributed on the internet over the next 5 years?
It's changing now. This year, 2012, will be the first year that sales of films on DVD will be eclipsed by sales of films as downloads. So now, the DVD, I mean, it's basically the movie industry is slightly behind the music industry in all of this.
Right.
And you've got now chain stores of, it was announced this week, 50 Best Buy stores nationally are going to close, including some in California.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it really is what we're going through, and I wish other people were talking about this. And when I say other people, I mean people smarter than me.
Sure.
We're going through, we had the Industrial Revolution, which really changed a lot. Right. We are now in the middle of the digital version of the Industrial Revolution, where people's jobs are changing. Certain jobs are going away. Newspapers closing, magazines. I mean, I jokingly say magazines are I
haven't read a magazine in a couple of years.
Oh, and I was when I read magazines, I was a magazine junkie. I had subscriptions to over 50 magazines and piles of them.
I used to stop at newsstands, and now I pass a newsstand and I get a headache. I just don't want to even open up a magazine now.
And it feels weird to physically even hold a magazine and read it.
I've gotten to the point where I can't even, I don't even read a newspaper as a paper.
It's bizarre. It's like, not in addition to business and things changing, we've transformed as people. I mean, I've got kids, right? My kids are like 17 and 19, and the way they consume things, it's different. Their brains have been, I almost feel that like the way that they teach them in school is so far behind. We're missing an opportunity that we need to change the way we teach kids because of the way that they consume data.
Yeah.
And our brains have changed. I mean, like I hate getting on the phone now because cell phone service is so unreliable. And secondly, all those sort of pleasantries just seem like a waste of time. Hello, hi. It's like I can get that all done in an email quickly. Yeah, I am kind of weird about I work in a very weird way. I think my brain was tuned to how the internet and things digitally work. I think my brain was like that before the internet existed. Especially when I look at like old issues of Film Threat, the way it was kind of laid out. It was unique design in the sense that it was very graphically oriented. And I think my brain worked that way, so that when the internet came along and print began to die, I made the transition quite easily. I prefer email to a phone call. Whenever I know I'm going to have an extended phone call, I like to schedule the phone call. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way about stuff, so I'm a little weird. What does this have to do with music? This is the part of the podcast where Scott gets to know me, because he really doesn't know. I mean, he knows me, but now he's just sort of getting to know me. Let's get back to it where we start talking about music. Now we're finally going to start talking about music. I want to start playing some music. All right, back to Hootenanny. Oh my God, yeah. Look, I saw the Clash when I was like 16 years old. It was a show where it was the Rock the Casbah tour, where it was at the Fox Theater in downtown Detroit, and they brought up for their encore, they brought everyone up on stage. Like the audience was on stage dancing with the band. It was so awesome. And I saw bands like the Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, like, big bands that were coming through the town. I mean,
well, DOA was from up in Canada, so you probably saw them a little bit.
Yep. I also saw the Smiths. I saw the Smiths. I mean, now I go see Morrissey, and it's like, oh, I love him singing sort of this until he gets sick of it and leaves the stage.
Yeah, Morrissey doesn't seem to like touring very much.
Right, but he does like money, so he'll continue to tour.
He does enjoy money. And who wouldn't love money, you guys?
Right. But I mean, like, I would see things like Throbbing Gristle, like, I would just like...
Which in Detroit makes sense.
Yeah, Einsters and the Neubauten, like these... So my taste was always, there was never a period where I could listen to the radio and say that I really liked what was playing, with the exception of there'd be like that one DJ that had that show that was on the New Wave, radio show, whatever that was. And they'd have a late night block, and he'd play all the stuff that was just really obscure. One of the guys was a guy named Mike Halloran, who I know went to mp3.com and among other things. He was that guy that always championed, like every time he played stuff, I was like, damn, I've never heard this. Or it's like he'd play deeper cuts out of, some of here's the popular song you've heard a million times on the radio. Now here's the B-side or the deeper cut that you need to know about. He was awesome. So Mike Halloran was like my hero. In fact, I put him in a short film I made when I was in college, because I just thought, I was just like so enamored by the fact that, like, how do you know all this cool music? I mean, like Simple Minds was a band you could completely brush off. But if you ever heard their earlier stuff,
the earlier stuff's much darker, yeah.
It's darker, industrial. It's weird. It's very ambient, and I loved that stuff. That it was music that like created a tone, like, and especially now working on film projects, you're trying to create work with a composer who's going to do some music, and try to give them instruction. Like, okay, I need a cue that sounds like carrying a friend who's dying from cancer to the ocean to watch the sun set. Play something that feels like that. And
what did you just play? Randy Newman?
No, but that is what I love is like those pieces of music that make you feel something you never thought could be captured in melody form. I mean,
right,
it's
because
amazing.
You have to carry the tone of the scene, obviously, for dramatic purposes. I mean, I had the same experience with Rodney Bingenheimer. Like, that was the guy that turned me on to music when I was a kid. Do you know who that is?
No, but he was a radio guy?
Yeah, he was on K-Rock in the late 70s, early 80s. I think there is a documentary called, I think it's called King of the Sunset Strip. He's a real character, kind of a sad guy now, but he was the guy who would have the show at midnight where I was doing my homework or trying to avoid my homework, and he would play the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and, TV Party by Black Flag. And so those were all my first exposures to those kinds of sounds, because before I was listening to Foreigner up to an egregiously late time in my life.
Oh, no, I had those like headphones that I would put on. I'd put on
The
records.
huge headphones.
Listen to records. Although the weird thing when my apartment, one of the reasons I ended up leaving Detroit is I lived downtown and I was always getting ripped off, like my apartment being broken into and things stolen. And I lost like everything I owned the third time my apartment was broken into.
Broke in and took
just
everything.
broke in and took everything. I was literally gone for the weekend to the Toronto Film Festival, which was just a train ride from Windsor. I came back and everything I owned just physically gone. And they used my, and I was on the third floor apartment. They used my bed sheets to actually sort of bundle stuff up like Santa Claus into Santa Claus like bags and lower stuff down as they stole everything. And I even tried to buy my stuff back from this crack house that was around the corner.
No way.
I gave a guy a couple $100 to go in and I just wanted the computer and the discs.
Right.
I didn't care about anything else. So he went in, and then I realized as I'm sitting in an alley, it's 5 p.m., gets to 6 p.m. Wow, it's getting dark. It's 7 p.m. He's not coming back.
Nope.
Then I thought, is he going to start to get paranoid? Is he going to kill me? I had a lot of bizarre adventures actually living in downtown Detroit, and I don't know. It kind of makes me sad and at the same time excited for the city to see all this kind of, reinvigorated creative community kind of moving into the city, and then at the same time seeing that the city is still messed up. But all right, this has nothing to do with music. We're finally getting into the music part of this conversation, which is what this whole podcast is about. So you know what? I want to play part of a track that we'll discuss in the next segment. This is The American Astronaut by The Billy Nair Show.
Every day and everywhere, it's The American Astronaut. Yes, and don't you know that I love it so? For me, American astronaut, and can't you see what it means to me to be the American astronaut? And don't you know that I love it so? To be the American astronaut. Please.
That was Corey Maccabee from the Billy Nair Show, one of my favorite bands. I love the Billy Nair Show. Corey is incredibly talented, a filmmaker and a musician. And we're going to talk about it on the podcast. I'm going to talk about it on the podcast with Scott, but I have to play this other track. We talk about it. It's also the Billy Nair Show from Stingray Sam. It's the series of shorts that Corey did, and this is called Get It Started.
Can I help you?
Party, it's a party, come on party, get retarded. Party, it's a party, come on party, get retarded. Party, it's a party, come on party, get it started. Party, it's a party, come on party, get retarded. The party, get it started. Party, it's a party, come on party, get retarded.
was Get It Started by the Billy Nair Show from his film Project Stingray Sam. See, now I'm really getting into this like I'm an actual DJ. But I used to love the DJs that had eclectic taste. I actually tuned in specifically to listen to certain DJs when I was growing up in Detroit. I talk about Mike Halloran as being one. And so they just introduced me to cool, different types of music rather than the crap that everybody else played. All right, so let's get back to the podcast. Scott and I going on and on. Now we start to geek out about music to each other. It's a geek fest on Hootenanny. Well, Giant Drag is, it's a chick band.
Girls.
I love it. They're great. And that particular song, it's one of those things where I like to put certain things on repeat. For some reason, that song got stuck on repeat a night where I just was fucking this girl all night. It was like a thing where it was all night. Actually, you know what's funny? It was at South by Southwest.
You had Kevin is Gay playing while you were having sex with a woman.
Kevin is Gay, and I work with a guy named Kevin Pereira on Attack of the Show. So I always thought that song was funny, and I had it like back in the days where on MySpace you could feature a song that would play. Sure. I had that as my song for since I started my account, just to kind of mess with Kevin. But then that song somehow got caught on repeat as I was boning this chick all night at South by Southwest. And I've always just liked it. I mean, I don't think of that when I put the song on. It's a funny story, but I like that song is just so weird. It has sort of a weird ending that's kind of childlike at the end. You kind of hear this. I don't know. I like when they will use like something that was said in the studio, not as a part of the song, in the song as like it's fading out. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff is...
there are parts of songs that you want to keep hearing over and over again. Yeah,
it's like an Easter egg, and that was one that's like hypnotic. I do tend to like songs that you can listen to like all day, mm-hmm. like New, what is Deer Hunter? Like that song, like that's a song I can put on repeat and just write to.
Right.
Because it gets you, it lulls you. I mean, didn't Andy Warhol famously used to do that? Like he would take a 45 record. Mm-hmm. Andy Warhol would put that on, and then he would just paint all day. But he'd listen to the same 45, and he said that after a while, what would happen is you stop hearing the song, and your brain is just sort of focuses in. It helps you to focus because it shuts out the outside world. And in order for me to write, I kind of have to get into that sort of zone. You know what I'm talking about.
I just imagine Andy Warhol not replacing the needle by himself, like he had just had a shirtless 12-year-old boy. Put it on again, like just a kid. That was his only job.
But I do tend to do that as which has driven some roommate situations or girls crazy, which is why I always have to have a home office that is sequestered, where I just listen to one song for the entire day. And a lot of these songs on the playlist represent that.
All right, so we had a couple of Get Set Go songs. What I Love About You and I Hate Everyone. I don't know this band. Tell me about them.
Get Set Go is a band. Mike TV is in the band, and he's kind of the lead singer, writes most of the songs. And he's not only brilliant musically, he just has really funny lyrics. But I have an issue you ever listen to a song that's funny than once? Than once? He's has an ability to write a song that is not only funny, but it's also a good song. So many of the comedy songs you listen to are like, that's really funny. I'm not going to listen to that more than once. I get that the lyrics are funny, but it doesn't musically satisfy, right?
Right.
So what I like about Mike TV stuff is it can be funny. It can also be really tragic and sad. And he's just one of those, he is an ADD genius. He also he did a Kickstarter recently for his band Get Set Go, so they could raise money for their new CD. Mm-hmm. And I put in money. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I put in is to write a song for I think it was $300. He'll write a song for you.
Really?
So I said, yeah, would you write the theme song for my podcast called PodCRASH? And I had recorded, I sort of was inspired at Comic-Con. I said, all right, I know what the idea for my podcast is, but what's the song? And I sang it. I literally thought that's the lyrics. That's it. I sang it into my iPhone and recorded it. I played this for Mike. He goes, well, that you should sing it. So he did the music, and he did my theme music for PodCRASH.
Wow.
But I love Get Set Go. They play and tour a lot, and they're just amazing musicians. They're great live.
And of course, Deer Hunter with Like New.
Yeah, that's one of those ones I could just listen on repeat forever. And it's weird. That song is also it's a hypnotic, gets you in that zone. and it's short. I like songs that are, not every song has to be 3 to 4 minutes.
Right.
I like songs that sort of break the mold. Like some of the songs later in the playlist are like, I've got longer songs, like 16-minute songs, and then that one's like 2 minutes, 14 seconds.
We're gonna have to hear the long ones. We'll have like a 5-hour podcast, basically. The Billy Nair Show with "Get It Started" and a complicated story behind this one.
Yes, well, it's the band is the artist is Corey Maccabee, who is the lead singer and writer behind a band called the Billy Nair Show, and he did a movie. Corey Maccabee did this film called The American Astronaut, which was at the Sundance Film Festival. The best way to describe it is The American Astronaut is a black and white musical about truckers in outer space. Now, see, you would not have known about The American Astronaut or Corey Maccabee and the Billy Nair Show if you weren't listening to this. So you're discovering music and some interesting films. I do kind of pride myself on just seeking out the stuff that's not. It's not at the sort of like, you got to look at the sort of the bottom shelf, the top shelf, or just something not sort of at the middle, which is where everybody seems to look because they're kind of lazy. But you can actually still be lazy, and you can just depend on me to. I'm just kind of living out my DJ fantasies now as I'm doing this. This is a lot of fun. All right, let's. How about this something else from my playlist? This is Deer Hunter with Like New.
I saw the city lights, mirrored with falling rain. Seems like
I could so listen to this stuff. You know what? Forget the. No, I'll get back to the podcast. There's one other band I want to let you guys know about. It's this band. I don't even know how I discovered them. They were on one of those podcasts where they just play like other just new music. And this band is called Sybris. They're from Chicago. This is a track called "Breathe Like You're Dancing." But look up everything Sybris. It's spelled Sybris. Sybris. They're a band you're gonna want to know.
Oh
that gives me chills every time I listen to it. Sybaris, look them up, Chicago. Let's get back to the podcast. I'm going to play some other music in between. I don't want you to think that I'm only into indie rock. It's a lot of indie rock that you've heard, but let me just say, I got something special in the next break. But Scott and I get back to it on Hootenanny.
As a person who's into movies and film, do you watch music docs?
All the time.
What's the ones you recommend that you like? I've probably seen some of them.
Oh yeah, Dig. I mean, Dig is probably one of the best music docs ever.
Yeah,
period.
which if people haven't seen it, it was made, I think, back in 2004, and it's basically the Dandy Warhols and the Brian Jonestown Massacre sort of butting heads with each other.
Yeah, it really
like,
is.
You really get to see what egos are like in the indie world of music.
It's the most epic story that everyone can relate to in the music business, because these bands are friends,
right.
And then one of them begins to have a larger commercial career where they're doing music videos for $100,000,
right?
And then the other band doesn't have that kind of success, but has a better musical output, and artistically speaking,
right?
And just more prolific in the sense that they're just constantly putting out music. But the Dandy Warhols became this commercial, and they're not evil. Their just career took a different path. I don't think that there are any bad guys in there. It's just that the bad guy is almost the music industry itself, because as the Dandy Warhols are being celebrated, Brian Jonestown Massacre is not having that kind of success, and then their lead singer. Oh God, the name escapes me. That guy.
Yeah, I don't remember it either.
Yeah, but he's. I mean, he was like one of those had issues with heroin and descent into drug abuse, and sort of had to suffer, not reaching the kind of success that he saw his friends have. And musically, I think that he was more talented.
And here's what's interesting: if you guys like the intro music to Boardwalk Empire, that is the band that does that song. If you're like, why are they doing a Stonesy Garage song before about a series about bootleggers in 1920? That's and I thought that was a brilliant choice. That's like a typical kind of Scorsese thing, to throw something that has nothing to do with what you're seeing on, and it works.
Absolutely, but that's also in music. I think that's true. Also,
a counterpoint kind of thing, what you're seeing and what you're listening to.
Exactly, things that aren't meant to go together. Going together and then actually somehow working. I mean, it's this sort of weird. I mean, music is very spiritual. The act of listening to it, emotions that come up from that, and the act of writing it.
Another thing that I really like. Have you seen the Harry Nilsson doc?
No, I haven't.
Oh God, I think it's called Everybody's Talking. It's one of the saddest things you'll ever see, of course, but there's all kinds of awesome Harry Nilsson footage. And it's basically Harry Nilsson sort of narrating from his own deathbed, his life.
Wow.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And talk about a guy who decided at the height of his success to just destroy himself. Holy shit. He came out with Nilsson Schmilsson, and then he had some bug in his head that I guess he didn't deserve to be successful. Boom. Next 20 years, it was just a nice downhill ride on a mountain of cocaine and booze.
Yeah, well, sometimes, unfortunately, that tragedy is so common. It's this, huge, what seemingly overnight success for a band, and then where do you go from there? How do you recapture the act of, you're struggling to make it. No one cares, and there's no attention. You're not filling venues. Then suddenly you do it, and then where does the artistic inspiration come from anymore?
Well, the funniest thing is the Metallica documentary. Some
Right.
kind of monster.
No, that one is, it's self-indulgent and narcissistic, coming from a podcast that kind of is like that.
I don't want to see the sausage being made at all, and I don't want to see the sausages in therapy.
Yeah, the sausages in therapy. Not only that, it's just also just sort of the business aspects of the band. Well, you're in the band, the one guy they brought in, and
yeah,
and it just, I don't know. I don't know that did much of a service to the industry. It's really disheartening. And I went to the world premiere of that, where they were in attendance, and that they paid for that. They paid to have the movie made, and then they also paid to have it distributed by IFC. So it's kind of definitely a vanity project. Yeah. So we talked about so much stuff on this podcast. Scott Boxenbaum, really, really smart guy. Okay. So I want to actually play some other stuff for you. A buddy of mine named Morgan, also AKA Super Genius. He does this series of CDs called Suckadelic. You can look up suckadelic.com. This is all it's breakbeats music, but a lot of the breakbeats music, he samples things from some stuff you'll like. Here's a little montage sampling of some of my favorite tracks from his. You can look up Psychedelic.
Lando's not a system; he's a man. Lando Calrissian, card player, gambler, scoundrel. You'd like him. Card player, gambler, scoundrel. You'd like him.
You truly belong here with us among the clouds. You truly belong here with us among the clouds. You truly belong here with us among the clouds. You truly belong here with us among the clouds.
Here's some more Psychedelic. You have to hear this one. I can't believe you made a whole song based on this character from Star Wars.
Admiral Akbar, please. Admiral Akbar, please. Admiral Akbar, please. Admiral Akbar, please.
You can see here the Death Star orbiting the forest moon of Endor. You can see here the Death Star orbiting the forest moon of Endor.
Admiral Akbar, please. Admiral Akbar, please.
Okay, one more track just to complete this sort of trilogy of Star Wars breakbeats. This is The Wisdom of Yoda.
The force around you. Feel the force around you. Feel the force around you. Feel the force around you. Life creates it. Makes it grow. 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 Luminous beings of not this crude matter. Luminous beings of not this crude matter. Luminous beings of not this crude matter. Luminous beings of not this crude matter.
I feel like you guys are at my house and I'm like, oh, you got to hear this one. Oh, and have you heard this one? You ever heard that one? I get way too into it when friends come over and whether we're talking about, I don't know, DVDs, video games, music, especially music. So I love to make playlists for friends. Okay, so in the next segment, we're going to talk about one of my absolutely favorite punk rock moments that happened on television. It's incredible, and I found this clip recently on YouTube. But you have to you just listen. Scott and I talk about it. Two basically geeky old punks. So that's us. All right, Hootenanny. This was the first song I discovered like in high school, college, that like was one of those anthem songs that I could just listen to.
Yeah.
It got you in the zone because it's like, what is it, like 7-8 minutes song? So it's a long song, but it lulls into a thing where it's very repetitive and again gets you in that zone for writing. But also, this is how I discovered John Lydon was, I mean, from the Sex Pistols, you're not quite sure. He's definitely has that sort of pointless punk arrogance, which I still have. Mm-hmm. But he had it in the sense where he channeled it into stuff that was just more intelligent. And I was just a big fan of like just everything that like it really inspired me to create Film Threat in high school was the music of the Sex Pistols because, and also the work of like Malcolm McLaren, like The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, another great music documentary, just inspired me. And so I followed everything John Lydon did. This song, the story behind this song, and if you've ever seen anything John Lydon's done, look up the interview he did with Tom Snyder on The Tomorrow Show, where Tom Snyder is trying to interview John Lydon and one other guy.
Not succeeding at all.
Not succeeding. It's one of the most brilliant interviews, and I collected all this weird footage, including the footage of John Lydon, PIL, on American Bandstand with Dick Clark. He appears on that show, and you know that like it's no secret that when bands were on that show, they just lip synced.
It's so bananas that that band was allowed on American Bandstand is a testament to the fucking weirdness of the early 80s.
Yeah, only allowed on that one time.
Well, yeah, of course.
Because here's what happened, and I still have the tape of this. If it's not on YouTube, I should be the one to upload it. What happened was John Lydon didn't do as told. No surprise.
Really?
You're supposed to lip sync. What he did, as soon as the cameras came on him, he didn't lip sync. He wanted to totally make fun of the farce that was lip syncing a song he thought was stupid. He actively went off the lip sync. When the cameras tried to follow him, he ran backstage, running away from the cameras. He went under this whole structure that they had built where the kids, like there's the dancing kids and there's like an audience. He was running through the kids that were dancing and the camera's chasing him and he wouldn't be, it's like, I think this is BS. I'm not going to be a monkey for your cameras, Dick Clark. Dick Clark was famously furious. He was never on the show again. And I don't even know if that aired more than once. I have a copy of it and I created it. I put it together in this compilation video I did. I was really into William Burroughs in college.
Oh my God, I need to see this.
I put this video together, which I called Cathode Fuck. And all it was, I'll make you a copy of this. It was every instance of punk rockers on mainstream TV shows.
Oh, wow. So do you have Fear on Saturday Night Live?
Fear on SNL. I've got like when the cops from Chips shut down that punk bar.
Oh,
and the guy from
yeah.
Boardwalk Empire's in it. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He's in it. And so they shut down the punk bar and
Bill Forsyth?
Is it him? Yeah.
Bill Forsyth, yeah.
He's the head of that band.
Right.
Chips shuts down the club. And so it goes from being a punk club to what's his name? The guy from Chips.
Eric Estrada.
Eric Estrada comes out at the end. Celebrate.
Oh my God,
good.
I remember that. And he goes, "This is what real music is, man."
Yeah. What I did was I put together this Cathode Fuck was a compilation of everything where someone from the world of punk was, and it's sort of mixed with a lot of other weird stuff, like a McDonald's training film on
Quincy.
Quincy. No,
Yep.
I got the Quincy thing. This PIL song, you probably heard it. It's old school. I'm just gonna play a little bit of it, but you can find this clip on YouTube where you see Dick Clark like freaking out over John Lydon. So here it is, PIL, Public Image Limited, Pop Tunes.
To the forest in a Japanese car, the smell of rubber on country tar. Hindsight does me no good. Standing naked in his back of the woods, the cassette played pop tones.
And the song goes on for like another 5 minutes, like of just this sort of repetitive tone. And I fell in love with this song because it's one of those long songs you could put on, and then it would sort of lull me into a zombie like state so that I could focus. This is what comes from ADD, OCD, I guess. Music is the cure for me. Okay, let's get back for the final segment of Hootenanny with Scott Boxenbaum. Awesome.
Ladytron with White Light Generator.
Just a great melodic song. I've seen them live a bunch of times and just always loved them. I like, that they don't follow, I tend to admire bands that don't follow traditions.
First song on the set was Jimmy Eat World, Goodbye Sky Harbor. Long song. It's one of those songs that was introduced to me by a girl I was madly in love with who described this as a song where I guess she had dated a guy who was in the band before they became famous. And then we hung out and she introduced this as like, this is a good makeout song. It's a really good makeout song because when it starts, it's like the first 3 minutes is like a completely different song. And then about 2 minutes, 50 seconds into Goodbye Sky Harbor, which is actually, I believe it's named off the airport in Arizona, which is where Jimmy Eat World is from. It goes into this lull, again, one of those repetitive but really romantic and getting you in the zone. And if you're making out with someone, I can't tell you how many chicks I finger banged to this song. Man, you do way better like getting laid with songs than I ever did. I got to tell you, you got some song skills there, my friend.
Well, let me just say, like, just the opportunity to be on a show where I have to create a playlist. Unfortunately, this is my mixed bag playlist. I'm not exaggerating. If I'm telling you I'm good at something, I'm actually really good at it. I am the master at playlists. I'm the master. I've been making mixtapes since there was a thing called a mixtape. That's how freaking old I am. But I have certain playlists that here's my secret. Playlists I'll send to girls. The first one is called Soft and Sweet. The second one is called Hard and Fast. Mm-hmm. See how that goes. The second set of CDs is Softer and Sweeter, Harder and Faster. The next set of playlists is Softest and Sweetest, Hardest and Fastest.
So you're basically seducing them via playlist?
Between playlists and my Twitter feed, I can get girls to like me.
Listen, Chris Gore, the master of subliminal game.
Well, there is something to playlists. That's the whole premise behind the show. But a good playlist, there's a reason there's a thing called a mixtape. It is, you're expressing something that you can't yourself express perhaps in words.
It's coming out of a thing in your mind that words can't attach to.
And I have playlists that are still in the making. I have one called Sunday Songs. It's all songs related to Sunday, or you know how Sunday feels different than any other day of the week? Mm-hmm. I have been for years creating a playlist called Sunday Songs that's just about how the day Sunday feels. There's something about it. There's like dread because the week's about to start, a little bit of like remorse, like the weekend's over, Saturday was a blast. You're sort of reliving, but it's also sort of a reboot of, okay, this happened last week. Let's have a better week, maybe optimism towards the rest. There's a tone and a feeling to a Sunday. Also, whether you went to church growing up, which luckily I only went a few times, there's something about the day Sunday that has a tone and a mood. And I want to create a playlist that captures that feeling. I'm still not done with it, but I do feel like I'm good at putting together a playlist. But music, it just means a lot to me. It's one of those things that to me, music is like air. Like I can't live without it. I have to have it in my life, whether it's in my ears, an earbud, in my car, wireless speakers throughout my house. I'm either listening to podcasts or music. So this is why I love this podcast. So that's it for this edition of PodCRASH. A very different episode of this show. But I was happy to actually play some music that you might not be familiar with or stuff that maybe you want to discover, kind of go into the back catalog, so to speak. In fact, what I'll do on the PodCRASH Twitter at PodCRASH Show, I'll actually tweet out a picture of the playlist itself, so you can actually find those songs on iTunes or other means that you have to find them. So, and there's a lot of cool, weird stuff in there. Okay, so that's it. Hootenanny discovered a really cool podcast about comedians and music and talking about life and all kinds of stuff. It's you can find the show. It's on iTunes, Hootenanny. Or you can also go to hootpodcast.com. You can also find Scott Boxenbaum on Twitter at ScottBox. And the show is at Hoot Podcast on Twitter. And if you want to check out Scott's comedy, which I'm going to be going to one of his upcoming shows. I have not seen one. I feel really guilty about this because he came to one of my shows, actually. But I have not seen his. But he's got a whole bunch of dates coming up. Go to scottboxcomedy.com for all of his upcoming dates. I'm going to be at some of those shows. Thank you for also. This show is also kind of for me like an experiment, like discovering other podcasts, telling you about stories from my life, stuff that's going on, my thoughts about certain things, having friends appear on the podcast. This is definitely an evolving project, so I appreciate that you guys tune in every week. I really want to thank the people who have rated and reviewed the show on iTunes. I really appreciate everyone who sort of posts gives us a 5-star review if you think we deserve it, but also just like posting those reviews. It helps other people discover the show, which is cool. Okay, so you can follow me on Twitter at @ChrisGore. You can follow the show at PodCRASH Show, and like our Facebook page. We also post on the Facebook page. We post photos from some of the sessions where I do live podcasts. I'll take pictures, with whoever I'm with and whatnot. So it's kind of a collection of photos from all that. And I started this album called Podcasts We've Crashed, which is all the logos of every show that I've been a guest on, and then all the ones that are upcoming. You can actually get a taste of what other shows are upcoming because I put the logos there. So it's facebook.com/podcrash. So check that out. And thank you for listening and enjoying. I hope you enjoyed some of this stuff. Hit me up on the PodCRASH thing, and we'll talk bands this week. All right, that's it. So I have to find one final thing to say. You know what I'm going to say? Let's get out of here.
So this guy walks into a bar and he says to the bartender, "Can I use your phone?" Bartender says, "Sure." So he wipes his ass on it, and the bar... What? Oh, shit. I just told you the punchline. Been telling this joke so fucking long, I knew I'd fuck it up. Anyway. Want to hear something really weird? So there's this man, he lived his whole life on Earth, and his name was Mr. Stevenson. When Mr. Stevenson was 8 years old, he asked another little boy if he would like a Hertz donut. The other boy said yes. So he hit him on the arm and he said, "Hertz donut." 5 years later, Mr. Stevenson asked another boy about his same age at that time if he would like a Hertz donut. When the boy said yes, Mr. Stevenson stabbed him over and over again in his eye and his cheek with a pencil, saying, "Hertz donut." Over the years, Mr. Stevenson did very well in school. On graduation day, he was sat next to another young man who, like Mr. Stevenson, had earned high marks. When he asked the boy if he would like a Hertz donut, the boy said, "Not if you're going to stab me in the eye with a pencil." "I wouldn't even touch you," said Mr. Stevenson. So when the boy agreed, he presented him with a photograph of the young man's fiancée at a bachelor party on some guy's table, fucking herself with a beer bottle. As tears filled the young man's eyes, Mr. Stevenson was heard to say, "Hertz donut." A few years later, Mr. Stevenson got a job as a sales clerk in an electronics store. Within a year, he was caught stealing and immediately incarcerated. When he asked his cellmate if he would like a Hertz donut, his cellmate said yeah. So he gave him a Hertz donut. Over the years, Mr. Stevenson grew too old to take care of himself, so they put him in a hospital. One day, he asked the new nurse if she would like a Hertz donut. In anticipation of her response, Mr. Stevenson began humming and making smacking noises with his mouth. When the nurse smiled and said, "I know about you, Mr. Stevenson," Mr. Stevenson blurted out something totally incoherent and began to laugh. I've never understood this joke. But then I've never been to Earth.
Hey, if you're still listening to this, you're probably a lot like me. You're the kind of person who stays through the end credits of a movie. If it's a Marvel movie, you got to stay to the very end. That means we're geeks. That means we're a lot alike. That also means I like you. For that, you shall be rewarded. Send me a self-addressed stamped envelope to PodCRASH with that Chris Gore, 5042 Wilshire Boulevard, PMB 1500, Los Angeles, California, 90036. I will return the self-addressed stamped envelope with a surprise. And the first 5 people to @reply on Twitter to at PodCRASH Show and say the words, "Let's get out of here," you'll win a free DVD. You can only win once, so don't do it every week. People, you know who I'm talking to. And if you're still listening to this, then you're in for a treat. When I'm in a romantic mood and I'm with my lady, I kind of like to mix up the playlist and throw in a song like this one. Later.
Fuck my ass right now. Finger fuck my ass. Slap my ass. Fuck my ass right now. Slap my ass. Fuck my ass right now. Finger fuck my ass. Slap my ass.
Have you seen Gigi Allen's Hated in the Nation?
I distributed that movie.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I knew Todd Phillips from back in the day.
So weird
He did
that
a movie.
Todd Phillips would make that movie.
I'll tell you a story behind that. So I was doing Film Threat magazine, and I sold the magazine to Larry Flint and spun off a separate magazine called Film Threat Video Guide.
Okay.
Film Threat Video Guide was all about these underground things coming out on video and then film festivals and whatnot.
Right.
And, I thought a lot of these filmmakers didn't know how to get their movies out there. I thought, well, we'll just put them out for you. Like, we'll distribute them. And we put out movies like Necromantic, among others. And I put out 3 documentaries by Todd Phillips. He made The Hangover, among other things.
Yeah, among other things.
So he did a movie called, he started the New York Underground Film Festival. And we put out 2 volumes of shorts from the New York Underground Film Festival on VHS. Then we put out a documentary he made called Chicken Hawk.
I remember Chicken Hawk, the NAMBLA one.
We
He
distributed
made the
that
NAMBLA
documentary. He made that documentary, and then he did the Gigi Allen doc. As we're just about to finish putting it out, we're finishing the box art. Right, I'm sitting in an office with Dave Williams, who edited the video guide, and we're like, we got the rights to Hated, and it's the deals we would do with filmmakers were like so simple. It was just like, yeah, you can walk away anytime. Someone can buy us out. If you want to check the books, who cares? We sent people checks like every 6 months. It was like filmmakers loved this. So we were working on the box art. We get a call from Todd Phillips, like Gigi Allen's dead. So we actually sent Todd Phillips some Super 8 cameras. He went to the funeral, and the funeral footage that's at the end of the movie is from Todd Phillips. Like, we sent him cameras so he could shoot extra stuff for the end, which made it as we're doing the box art for the VHS tape. So we did Hated, and then Todd Phillips went on to famously do that documentary, which I've never seen, which is about It's about hazing in colleges. And because he didn't get certain clearances from people, that documentary was shown at Sundance and has never been seen since.